Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Awareness Wednesday. My name's Taylor Benn. I'm the Executive Director of Hope for All, and I'm very happy to be joined today by Dr. Hallie Sheade from S.T.E.P.S with Horses and Equine Connections Counseling, and she's going to give us some tips and strategies today on dealing with stress. So, Hallie, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me to be here today. And just for a little bit of background, so I have a PhD in counseling and I am a licensed professional counselor. So I specialize in mental health counseling and providing treatment for different types of mental health conditions. And through S.T.E.P.S for Horses and Equine Connection, we primarily focus on providing equine assisted counseling for people with different types of mental health concerns. So that may be military veterans with post-traumatic stress, children with behavioral concerns, anxiety, depression, and this all takes place through interaction with the horses as the treatment modality. So in terms of the pandemic and COVID-19, today I thought we'd talk a little bit about some of what we can expect mental health-wise and some things that we can be doing to try to take care of ourselves and help take care of others. So just to kind of go over some of the mental health impacts, and it's important to note that they're still gathering data, so we don't know exactly what the mental health impacts of COVID-19 are yet. A lot of the literature in which they're theorizing from comes from past pandemics that have occurred in Asia, as well as things that have happened on a much smaller scale here or even related to natural disasters. But the difference between something like this, a pandemic, and a natural disaster, is that this hasn't stopped. So the disaster, so to speak, is still occurring. But also, the biggest difference is that most of the time when there's a disaster, like Hurricane Katrina, people come together and they get support together. With a pandemic, you can't do that. Having to stay apart is something that makes a significant difference in how people are able to cope and heal from these kinds of things. So, for anybody listening, if, you haven't heard about the different types of mental health impacts, or you've noticed that changes in yourself or your children, just know it's normal to feel sad, to feel angry, scared, worried, more irritable, stressed, depressed, have trouble sleeping. For kids, you may be seeing more behavior outbursts or even more regressed behavior where they're acting younger than they are. This is all normal responses to how life has changed. And life has changed in some pretty significant ways. Whether it's people who are grieving the loss of significant people in their lives, or people who are grieving the loss of their daily routine and their rhythm and the places they would go and the people that they would see. That's also a type of grief and a type of loss. And I think sometimes people don't realize that. And what they're going through is grief. That being said, there are some people that are likely to be more impacted mental health-wise than others. So especially essential workers, because they are literally putting themselves out there on the front line. They know that there's risk in what they're doing. Medical professionals in particular, they're much more likely to be exposed to a higher viral load. There's obviously been lots of concern in the news about having adequate protective equipment. And so all of that can contribute to higher stress, anxiety, and even post-traumatic stress for these people. People who come down with COVID and later recover from it, they're also at a higher risk of mental health concerns and post-traumatic stress. And that's one of the things that people are often surprised about when it comes to post-traumatic stress and PTSD, is that you don't have to have gone to war. You don't have to have experienced some type of significant abuse to have post-traumatic stress. Anything in which your life has been threatened, or there's been a risk of your life being seriously threatened, in which case, COVID is that, you can develop post-traumatic stress from. It doesn't mean everybody will, but it means that many people will. And that's what they've seen in the research on healthcare providers in Asian countries that have dealt with previous pandemics. Nurses in particular are most vulnerable because they're the ones that interact with the patients the most. In addition, people with existing mental health problems may be experiencing a worsening of their symptoms just from increased worry, collective stress, decreased opportunities to be able to use their coping skills, if that might mean, going out and getting a massage or, going to the gym, but also being more disconnected from their support system. And then finally, and this is a group of people that a lot of people may not think about when they think about who's going to be most impacted mental health wise. And this is the partners and the family members of the essential workers. So they're very likely to experience what's called secondary trauma, in which the person, the husband or the wife or the mother or the father is going out and they're having these stressful experiences, and that stress is trickling down to the family members as well. So just wanted to put it out there, what some of the mental health impacts we're seeing, what some of them are likely to be. I know people have also talked about suicide risks going up, and we just don't have the data fully on that yet to really say what the impact of that is and what it's going to be. In some cases, there are some sources saying we're seeing an increase in suicide, but other sources are actually saying there's a decrease in the calls to suicide hotlines. Because for some people, some of the stressors, like going to school, for example, and being bullied or being around peers, have been removed. So just important to know, what the realm of possibilities are for the mental health impacts. So that being said, I think we can take away some really good lessons from the horses on how to cope right now with, pandemic-related stress and anxiety, as well as, the isolation from quarantine. So some of the things that we see in horses is how important it is to play. Horses really prioritize play, and they prioritize, things that they enjoy. So what this would translate to is if you have other people you live with, whether that's your family or your roommate, schedule time to be together and to do things together. Build that cohesion in your house or your apartment or wherever you are, where you guys are doing something fun, whether that's an art project or baking, playing board games. And also it's so important to allow children to play. And when I say play, I mean play without electronic devices, play where there's interaction between the parent and the child. Because what that allows the child to do is it allows the child to be able to express their thoughts and feelings in their natural language. So even if a child can talk about what's going on, especially the younger children, so I'm talking about the 9 and unders, they're going to more effectively process their experiences through play. So playing with the toys may, the doll may say what the child is feeling, or just even playing out the themes. So we kind of look at play as the language of children, with toys being their words. And so the more that the parent is able to take the time to play with the child and be in the child's world, the more the child has the opportunity to express and process their feelings. Play also boosts positive feelings. If we're playing with others, it can boost our social connection hormones, which in turn can impact our mood in really positive ways. So developing new hobbies is another way. So things that bring you a sense of enjoyment. There's a concept called flow, which is kind of when we feel like we're getting lost in something that we're really enjoying. So for me, that's riding horses. For somebody else, it might be swimming or running or writing or painting. So the more you're able to get yourself into that state of flow, the better it's going to be for your mental health, and the more protective it's going to be from stress. Laughing is a well-known stress reducer, not just the stress that we think about, but just even the stress that's physiologically being held in our bodies. I think it was shortly before the pandemic, there was, I think it was one of the morning radio shows. They were talking about there had been some study done on the TV show Friends, and by watching Friends, it boosted people's mood. And so, finding your favorite comedy, watching your favorite comedian, that's also going to physiologically and emotionally reduce your stress levels. And there's actually a really great, going back to the kids, there's a really great website I learned about recently on the Lego site called Let's Build Together, where it gives ideas for activities that parents and children can do together. So again, first lesson from the horses is take time to play. The next lesson from the horses is you want to be in the moment. So you want to be present. When you start to find yourself being drawn into the news or falling down the rabbit hole of doing research, you're not present anymore. You're not in the moment. And that creates a lot of stress in our system, physiologically, but also emotionally. And so putting some limits around how much news you watch. Maybe you pick 1 or 2 trusted news sources and check them once or twice a day. Anything earth-shattering happens, you're most likely going to hear about it another way. And at this point, it's unlikely that anything earth-shattering would happen in the span of 6 hours. And so if you're checking your 1 or 2 trusted sites a day, then that's a really good way to limit your exposure so you're not falling down those news rabbit holes. And also when you do start to look at the news, and this kind of goes with the play as well, the play happiness creators, is try to go to some of the good news sites. And there are news sites out there that only promote good news. And so giving your brain an opportunity to balance the stressful news or the upsetting news against the fact that there are still really positive things happening in the world. And then focusing on your surroundings. So that's a really great technique to try to make yourself present. So just kind of taking a moment to pause. What do you feel? What do you hear? What do you see? What do you smell? If you're eating, there's a concept called mindful eating. What do you taste? And so that really puts you in the present moment, right here and now. And that's the world that the horse lives in. The horse doesn't really know how to not be present. And so if there is a horse that is continually agitated or ongoing agitated, over time that will actually create significant stress physiologically for them. And it does the same for us. But we tend to notice it more in animals than a lot of time we do in ourselves. So, other things you can do to try to stay present in the moment. Flow is a really great one, but just listening to music, coloring, journaling, painting, disengaging from the screen, even if it's not news. When you're focusing on the screen, whether you're playing games or whether you're even watching, binge watching TV shows, you're not really present in the moment. And our brains need us to be present in the moment and take time to be present. So just, trying to be mindful of your screen time overall. So another lesson from the horses is to take care of your basic needs. And I think that's something that often goes by the wayside when people are stressed. We forget to drink water. We forget to eat healthy, regular meals. But our system doesn't function as well when we're not taking care of our basic needs. And when I say our system, that doesn't just mean physiologically, but it also means mentally and emotionally. If we're dehydrated, that's going to start to affect the way we think, the way we feel. We may feel more irritable. We may have trouble concentrating. And so really making sure that you're taking care of those basic needs for staying hydrated, eating healthy meals, making sure you're getting enough sleep. Creating a routine is a really good way to make sure that you're covering all those basic needs, but can also make things feel safer and more predictable if your day has a pattern to it. One of the best ideas that I've seen for how to create a routine, especially for people who are not routine people, is you divide your day into segments. So, one segment, 1 to 2 o'clock is your creative time. 3 to 4 o'clock is mental stimulation time. And so you don't have to commit yourself to a specific activity, but you kind of make sure you're covering the different bases. And then the last lesson from the horses is to make sure you're connected with your herd. Horses rely on their herd for every type of emotional safety and security and survival. So physically, the more horses in the herd, the better they can detect a predator. So when a horse is separated from their herd, or they're not getting enough interaction with their herd, if they're in stalls and they don't get that social contact, that can create a lot of stress in horses. And it can also create a lot of stress in us because we are a social being as well, which is why, the equine assisted counseling works so well, because we're connecting one social being to another. But with the pandemic, like I said in the beginning, we have had to separate ourselves, which means that our social support systems have really been strained. And so, it's really important to try to find ways to fill those gaps and make sure you are connecting with your herd, whether that's the people that are physically living in your household with you, whether that is making phone calls or video chats to people that you can't physically be with. In fact, I think I saw an article recently that phone calls, just the regular old phone call, not texting, not even video, the phone carriers are seeing that going up because people are reaching out to each other more. So make sure that you're doing that, call that old college or, your great aunt who you haven't talked to in 6 months, just make sure that not just for you, but also for them, and then with your pets. So pets are another really great source of social support. And so make sure that you're spending time with your pets. If you're not taking regular walks, try to integrate that if you have a dog or an animal that, goes out on a walk. If not, if it's another type of animal, integrate that playtime into your routine, because it'll be good for you and it'll be good for them. So yeah, so those are the lessons from the horses in a nutshell. Just to summarize, take time to play, be in the moment, make sure you're taking care of your basic needs, and connect with your herd.
Thank you for that. It's funny how much the horses are really just like people when you really stop and think about it. Are there any questions from those of you on the line? I didn't see anything in the chat, but if you have any questions for Dr. Sheade, feel free to ask. I know for me, I'm one of those people that the quarantine didn't affect my work life really. I do school online already, and I work from my house already. And I live alone with my 3 dogs, and so I've got that support all the time. But what really hit me was being away from the rest of my herd, not getting to see my nieces, not getting to see my family. I think my mom and I went like a full 4 weeks without hugging each other, which we're a very affectionate family. So I know that's where I started to feel it, just as somebody who does live alone. So this is hitting people in different ways. It looks like Debbie and Doris have unmuted. Did y'all have a question?
Not a question. I just wanted to say thank you. I think more importantly, even though because I come from an LPC perspective, I'm aware of all of this, it is so wonderful to be validated and to realize that in yourself, you don't always realize those things that are causing you to have anxiety, those smaller things that you can stop and do where intellectually you know it, but until you kind of hear someone else say it, the validation and the reminder and all that. So thank you very much. I really appreciate this call, this video today, and I'm glad it's recorded. I'm thinking of several people that could really use just hearing this again. And I think if nothing else, to feel like you're okay feeling all these things, and some simple things you can do to help eliminate them or help get through them in a stronger way.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I'm glad that this has been beneficial and helpful and a source of validation, because that is so important, to feel that and to feel like you're not alone in whatever, however people are responding or feeling.
Well, thank you all for joining. And yes, this is recorded. We'll get that posted on our Facebook and YouTube channels. And if you're feeling stressed, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling negative feelings more than is your norm or more than you think you should be, reach out. There are people who want to help, and there's many ways to get help. So ask for help if you need it. And thank you again, Dr. Sheade. And we will see you all next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.